Alright, let's dive in. Before we get started, drop a comment letting us know where in the world you're tuning in from. And hey, when we reach the end, give the story a rating from 0 to 10. Your feedback means everything. David Miller stood poised on the precipice of a deal that could either crown him king or leave him in ruins. The merger with Sterling Corporation was his moonshot, a promise to catapult his company to stratospheric heights. Billions danced precariously on the edge of this signature. Every nerve was wired, every thought laser-focused. He was just moments away from inking the contract when the room's door creaked open, breaking the spell. Anna, a member of the night cleaning crew, shuffled in, pushing her utility cart. "Sorry to interrupt, everyone. Just need to empty the trash," she murmured, her tone laced with genuine humility. Nobody seemed to register her presence, lost as they were in premature celebration. Anna wheeled her cart to the bin beside David's chair. As she bent down, feigning an adjustment of the trash bags, she leaned in, her face inches from his ear. Her whisper was barely audible, a fragile thread of sound. "Don't sign. It's a trap." David's blood turned to ice. His hand froze, the pen hovering a hair's breadth above the paper. It slipped from his suddenly numb fingers, landing silently on the polished wood. "What?" he breathed, his mind reeling. Anna straightened slowly, offering a fleeting, serious glance before masking her expression. She grabbed the trash can, resuming her routine as if nothing had happened, and began pushing her cart toward the exit. But David was transfixed, his gaze locked on her retreating figure. David? Leandro, his trusted business partner and lifelong friend, leaned in, a strange, unsettling smile playing on his lips. "Everything all right, Mr. Miller?" Javier chimed in from across the mahogany table. "Ready to seal the deal?" David swallowed hard, his throat suddenly dry. The contract lay before him, untouched, a siren's call. The merger details were splayed out, vulnerable for all to see. He scanned Leandro's face, then Javier's, and finally, the doorway where Anna was on the verge of disappearing. The world seemed to tilt on its axis. "I need 5 minutes," he announced abruptly, pushing back from the table. 5 minutes? Leandro's tone was deceptively light, but a flicker of concern tightened his eyes. "Is everything okay?" "I need to take care of something," David replied, already striding toward the door. "Mr. Miller, everyone's here. All the terms have been reviewed. There's nothing left to change," Javier protested, a sharp edge now audible in his voice. 5 minutes, David repeated, his voice firm, brooking no argument. Without waiting for a response, he slipped through the door, closing it firmly behind him. Anna was just a few steps down the hallway, guiding her cart. The sound of his quickening footsteps made her pause. "You," David said, pointing a commanding finger at her. "With me now." She hesitated, surprise etched on her face, but nodded silently. They walked in silence to a small, utilitarian break room. David entered first and she followed. He shut the door with a definitive click and turned to face her, his gaze intense. "Explain now," he demanded, crossing his arms, his eyes boring into hers. "And convince me you're not completely insane for interrupting me like that." Anna stood clutching a trash bag in one hand, her knuckles white. "I know how it sounds, but I overheard conversations. Things no one else did. They're setting you up." "Who's they?" "Sterling and your partner, Leandro." Her voice wavered for a moment, then steadied. "They're using the contract to bury hidden debts and destabilize your company. If you sign it, you'll be giving everything away." David stared at her, his mind struggling to process the words. Part of him wanted to dismiss it as ludicrous. The other part couldn't ignore the icy tendrils of dread creeping down his spine. "What's your name?" "Anna." "How long have you worked here?" 8 months on the night shift." "All right, Anna." He stepped closer, his gaze unwavering. "Let me be clear. If this is a lie, a conspiracy theory, or some twisted attempt to get attention, you're fired on the spot." Anna bit her lip, her gaze unwavering. "I understand, and I accept that. But if I stay silent and you lose everything, I'd never forgive myself." David turned away, his gaze fixed on his reflection in the glass wall. The Chicago skyline spread below, a vibrant tapestry of life, but his world had just fractured. This woman, with nothing to gain and everything to lose, was standing here, placing herself in the crosshairs. "Do you have proof?" he asked, his voice tight, his back still turned. "I do. Photos, records, screenshots. I can show you tonight. 7 o'clock. Right here in this room," he said, nodding toward the small space. "Bring everything. If you don't convince me, it'll be your last day here." Anna simply nodded. David waited for her to leave before pressing his forehead against the cold glass. Outside, the contract waited for his signature, a loaded gun. But now, for the first time in his career, doubt gnawed at him. He re-entered the meeting room, his heart hammering against his ribs. All eyes swung toward him as he pushed the door open. Leandro had been leaning over the table, whispering to Javier, but straightened up immediately at his entrance. "Did you take care of what you needed?" Leandro asked, his smile failing to reach his eyes. "Yes." David walked toward the table, but remained standing. He glanced at the contract, then at the faces surrounding him. "Actually, I think I need to review a few clauses again." "Review?" Javier frowned, his annoyance palpable. "Mr. Miller, we spent weeks dissecting every detail of this document. And that's precisely why I want to take one last look." David picked up the folder and closed it with a snap. "Let's reschedule for tomorrow." A tense silence descended upon the room. Leandro rose slowly, his fists clenched on the table's surface. "David, this doesn't make sense. We're wasting valuable time. Sterling has other interested parties. You know that. Then let them be." David met his childhood friend's gaze, his expression cold. "One night won't make a difference." "It will." Javier slammed his hand on the table, his agitation boiling over. "The market's unstable. The stock is up. It's now or never." David observed the man's frantic reaction, his suspicion deepening. Anna had been right about something. This level of pressure was far from normal. "The decision is mine." He snatched the contract and placed it in his briefcase. "I'll see you tomorrow." Without giving them a chance to protest, David turned and left the room, leaving behind a group of visibly disgruntled men. At precisely 7 o'clock, David entered the break room. Anna was already there, perched on one of the chairs, a small backpack resting on her lap. She stood up as soon as she saw him. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Show me what you've got." David sat down across from her at the small round table. Anna unzipped her backpack and pulled out her phone. Her hands trembled slightly as she navigated to her photos. "It all started 3 weeks ago. I was cleaning Leandro's office when I overheard voices in the next room." She paused, taking a deep breath. "I recognized his voice, and a woman's. They were talking about you." David leaned forward, his senses on high alert. "Go on." "Her name is Sophia. Blonde, tall, always wearing expensive clothes." Anna swiped her finger across the screen, displaying a blurry photo taken through a crack in the door. "This is her." A cold fist clenched around David's heart. Sofia Delgado, his ex-girlfriend, the woman who had ended their relationship 2 years ago, claiming they were fundamentally incompatible. How is she involved in this? She and Leandro, they're together now, and they're planning something against you. Anna swiped to the next photo. "Listen to this." She pressed play on a recording. The audio quality was poor, but the voices were unmistakable. "Once he signs, we'll have full control of the assets." "Are you sure David suspects nothing?" "David's always been too naive to notice when he's being betrayed. It was true with me, and it will be true now. What if he finds out?" "He won't. Trust me, Sophia. In 48 hours, we'll own his company." David ran a hand over his face, his head swimming. Leandro's voice was unmistakable, and Sophia's laugh, the sound that had once captivated him, now resonated with venom. "Is there more?" he asked, his voice hoarse. Anna nodded and scrolled through more photos. Documents snapped in haste, contracts with clauses that differed drastically from the ones David had seen, bank transfers to unfamiliar accounts. They changed the original contract. Anna tapped one of the images. See this section? In the version you have, it says you'll retain 60% control. But in the real one, the one they'll use when you sign, you're left with only 20%. This is... David took the phone, his eyes narrowed. This is document fraud. It's a crime. And that's not all. Anna moved to the next photo. This $15 million transfer happened last week. From Sterling's account to Leandro's personal account. David stood abruptly and walked to the window. The city lights twinkled in the inky blackness. But to him, everything seemed shrouded in shadow. Why? He murmured, more to himself than to Anna. Leandro's been my best friend for 15 years. We went to college together, built everything from scratch. Sometimes people change when there's a lot of money involved, Anna said quietly, replacing the phone in her bag. Or maybe they were always like that and you just didn't want to see it. David turned back, still struggling to reconcile the evidence with his perception of reality. Why are you telling me this? You could lose your job. Anna hesitated, her eyes downcast. Because it's the right thing to do. I can't just stand by and watch someone get betrayed like that. David studied her, sensing there was more to the story, a deeper motive she wasn't ready to reveal. This evidence, how can I be sure it's real? I understand why you don't trust me, Anna said, securing her bag. But if you sign tomorrow, you'll lose everything. They've already planned every step. David was silent for a long moment, a desperate hope flickering within him that it was all a misunderstanding. I need more proof, he said finally. I need to be absolutely sure. I can get more, but it'll be risky. Then be careful, David said, his gaze locking with hers. If this is true, if Leandro really is betraying me. He couldn't bring himself to complete the sentence. We'll find out the truth, Anna said with unwavering resolve. After she left, David remained in the room, staring out at the cityscape. For the first time in 15 years, he harbored a seed of doubt about Leandro, a seed that threatened to blossom into a forest of mistrust. The next morning, David arrived at the office earlier than usual, the events of the previous night replaying in his mind. The images of the doctor documents and Leandro's voice on the recording haunted him. He needed answers, definitive proof to either confirm or dispel his growing fears. He went directly to Human Resources and requested Anna Santos's employee file. Martha, the HR representative, appeared surprised. The cleaning lady's file? She asked, adjusting her glasses. Did something happen? Just a routine check. David lied smoothly. I need to confirm a few details. Martha retrieved a slim folder. David opened it, and his eyes widened in disbelief as he scanned the attached resume. Anna Santos, 28 years old, a degree in business administration from Northwestern University with a specialization in corporate finance. Previous experience in business consulting at McKinsey & Company. McKinsey? David murmured, stunned. Excuse me? Martha leaned closer, peering at the file. It's nothing. Thank you, David said quickly, closing the folder and handing it back. He left HR, his thoughts swirling. Anna had worked at McKinsey, one of the most prestigious consulting firms in the world. How could someone with that pedigree end up working as a janitor? During lunch, he searched the halls for Anna, eventually spotting her on the 12th floor, cleaning the windows in a small conference room. Anna, he said, approaching her. I need to talk to you. She turned, startled by his presence. Did something happen? Did you find out more about Leandro? Actually, I found something out about you. David crossed his arms, his expression serious. Northwestern University, McKinsey & Company, corporate finance. Anna's face paled. She dropped the cleaning cloth and took a deep breath. You looked at my file. Why didn't you tell me who you really are? Anna glanced around to ensure they were alone before responding. Because it doesn't matter, she said bitterly. It doesn't matter how many degrees I have or where I used to work. To everyone here, I'm just the Latina cleaning lady. But McKinsey, that's impressive. How did I end up here? Anna cut him off, her voice laced with pain. Do you want the truth? I worked at McKinsey for 2 years. I was good at it. Really good. But when it came time for promotions, There was always a reason why I didn't move up. David listened intently, noticing the raw emotion in her eyes. First, they said I needed more experience. Then, that my communication style didn't match the company culture. Anna gave a mirthless laugh. Translation: I was too competent for my position, but I didn't look the part for a leadership role. That's discrimination. You could have filed a lawsuit. With what money? Anna picked up the water bucket, her movements sharp. And who would believe a Latina over a company like McKinsey? David was silent, grappling with the injustice of her situation. And your family? You mentioned a sister. Maria is 22, Anna said softly. She was born with a congenital heart defect. We need $200,000 for surgery. When I was let go from McKinsey, she paused, correcting herself. Actually, when they asked me to resign, I had to take whatever job I could find. That's why you're here. That's why I'm here, Anna confirmed with a nod. The health plan covers part of Maria's treatment, and even though the pay is low, it helps with her medication. I can't afford to be unemployed. David felt a pang of empathy. A brilliant woman, educated at a top university, with experience at a leading firm, working as a janitor because of prejudice and family obligations. Anna, I had no idea. Well, now you do, she said, resuming her cleaning. That's why I recognized the doctor documents right away. I spent years analyzing corporate contracts. Those discrepancies jumped out at me immediately. And that's why you warned me about the betrayal. Anna stopped cleaning and met his gaze directly. Partly, yes, but also because she hesitated. Because you're different from the other executives here. I've been watching you for months. You treat everyone with respect, no matter their role. And when I saw they were planning to destroy you the same way they ruined my career, you couldn't stay silent. Exactly. David studied her for several long moments. Anna Santos wasn't just a cleaning lady who had overheard something by chance. She was a highly qualified professional who had recognized corporate malfeasance and chosen to act, even at great personal risk. Anna, when all this is over. David? Leandro's voice echoed down the hallway. They both turned to see Leandro approaching, a curious expression on his face. What are you doing here? Leandro asked, his gaze shifting between David and Anna. Just checking on how the cleaning's going. David replied smoothly. You know how particular I am. Leandro glanced at Anna, who had resumed wiping the windows, feigning disinterest in their conversation. Since when do you personally care about the cleaning staff? Leandro's tone revealed his suspicion. Since I decided to pay more attention to details. David forced a smile. Speaking of which, did you reschedule the meeting with Sterling for this afternoon? Yes, 3 o'clock. Leandro's eyes remained fixed on Anna. I hope there won't be any more hesitation. Of course not, David said, starting toward the elevator. Let's grab lunch. I need to go over a few contract adjustments with you. Leandro followed him, but not before casting one last, lingering glance toward Anna. As they waited for the elevator, Leandro pressed the button and turned to David. You've been acting strange since yesterday, he said, his voice probing. Is there something I should know? David chose his words carefully. Just pre-negotiation nerves. You know how I get before big decisions. David, we've been friends for 15 years. We built this company together. Leandro placed a hand on his shoulder. If something's bothering you, you can tell me. David looked into his best friend's eyes, searching for any hint of deception. But Leandro appeared genuinely concerned. I'm fine, Carlos. I just want to make sure we're doing the right thing. Of course we are, Leandro said, his smile returning. This merger will make us the undisputed leaders in the market. Trust me. The elevator doors slid open, and they stepped inside. But as they descended, David couldn't shake Anna's words from his mind. Sometimes money changes people. For the first time in 15 years, he wondered if he truly knew Leandro. That afternoon, Anna was finishing up cleaning the executive bathroom on the 15th floor when she heard footsteps approaching in the hallway. It was nearly 5 o'clock, and most of the executives had already left for the day. Frowning, she wondered who might still be around. Through the slightly ajar door, She recognized Leandro's distinctive voice speaking to someone. A woman responded, and a shiver ran down Anna's spine. It was Sophia. "Are you sure it's her?" Sophia asked, her voice laced with irritation. "Absolutely. I looked into it after seeing David talking to her yesterday." Leandro replied, his voice growing closer. Anna Santos, 28 years old, former McKinsey, too smart for her own good. Anna held her breath, pressing herself against the bathroom wall. Her heart hammered in her chest as she realized they were talking about her. "And do you think she overheard our conversation last week?" Sophia's voice sounded anxious. "I'm sure of it. I checked the security cameras. She was cleaning my office at the exact time we were finalizing the details." Leandro paused. And today, David was acting completely different. He backed out of signing yesterday, asked a ton of questions about clauses we'd already reviewed. "Damn it!" Sophia's voice rose in panic. "If David finds out about us, about the money we transferred, he won't. Not if we act fast." Leandro cut her off. "I need to get rid of the cleaning lady before she causes any more problems." Anna covered her mouth with her hands, stifling a gasp. They knew. They knew she had uncovered their scheme. "How?" Sophia asked, her tone dripping with disdain. "I'll accuse her of stealing, right in front of everyone," Leandro said coldly. "No one will believe a fired janitor over me. And if David tries to defend her, David's been my best friend for 15 years. Even if he has doubts, he won't publicly challenge me over a cleaning lady," Leandro said with a chuckle. "He's too predictable." Anna closed her eyes, tears stinging her eyelids. She had risked everything to warn David about the betrayal, and now she was about to be destroyed for it. "When?" Sophia asked. "Now. I'll call her to the main auditorium, announce an urgent safety meeting for all employees." The footsteps receded, and Anna remained in the bathroom for several minutes, trying to compose herself. Her hands trembled as she thought about Maria, her sick sister, who depended on the health insurance from this job. If she was terminated for cause, she would lose not only her salary but also the medical coverage that kept Maria alive. The building's intercom crackled to life. "All employees must report immediately to the main auditorium for an urgent safety meeting." Repeating, "All employees to the main auditorium." Anna took a deep breath, squared her shoulders, and exited the bathroom. No matter what happened, she wouldn't give Leandro the satisfaction of seeing her break. The auditorium was packed. Employees from every department whispered amongst themselves, speculating about the sudden meeting. Anna entered from the back, keeping her head high, and stood near the rear wall. David sat in the front row, alongside other executives. He scanned the auditorium, and for a fleeting moment, their eyes met. Anna saw confusion etched on his face, as if he were as clueless about the reason for the meeting as everyone else. Leandro stepped onto the stage, carrying a manila folder. His face was grave, almost grim. "Thank you all for coming on such short notice." His voice boomed through the microphone. "Unfortunately, I need to address a very serious matter concerning the security of our company." A nervous murmur rippled through the room. "Yesterday, we discovered that confidential documents were photographed and removed from the executive offices." Leandro paused for dramatic effect. "This is not only a breach of contract but also a case of corporate espionage." Anna felt a chill creep down her spine. She knew exactly where this was headed. "After a thorough investigation by our security team, we have identified the individual responsible." Leandro's gaze locked with Anna's. "Anna Santos, from the cleaning staff. Would you please come forward?" Every head in the auditorium swiveled toward Anna. She felt the weight of hundreds of stares, some curious, others already judgmental. Her legs trembled, but she forced herself to walk to the front of the room, determined to maintain her composure despite the humiliation that awaited her. "Miss Santos," Leandro continued, his voice adopting a cold, authoritative tone. "Photographs of confidential company documents were found on your phone. How do you explain that?" Anna glanced at David, who was sitting in the front row. He looked stunned, caught between surprise and confusion. She saw the internal struggle playing out on his face. Anna began, but Leandro cut her off. In addition, he said, raising his voice, security cameras show you entering executive offices outside of your scheduled cleaning hours. He opened the folder and extracted printed photographs. These images were taken last week. The photos were passed along the front row. Anna watched as David took one, his expression hardening into what appeared to be disappointment. Miss Santos, theft of intellectual property is a federal crime, Leandro said, stepping closer to her on the stage. However, given your previously clean record, we're offering termination for cause instead of involving law enforcement. This isn't fair. Anna finally found her voice. I was trying to protect. Protect what? Leandro interrupted harshly. Your own interests? Were you planning to sell this information to our competitors? No, I was protecting Mr. Miller from... Enough! Leandro slammed his fist on the podium, the sound echoing through the auditorium. I will not allow a dishonest employee to defame this company or its executives. Anna turned to David in desperation, silently pleading with him to speak up, to defend her. But David remained silent, his face a mask of internal conflict. Security, please escort Miss Santos out of the building. Leandro instructed the 2 uniformed guards flanking the stage. She is no longer permitted on our premises. David, Anna cried out as the guards approached her. You know I was trying to help. You saw the evidence. David rose slowly, and for a moment, Anna allowed herself to hope that he would finally stand up against the injustice unfolding before him. But then, he averted his gaze, his jaw clenched tight. I'm sorry it's come to this, Anna, he said softly, almost in a whisper. But the evidence is very clear. Anna's heart shattered. The man she had risked everything for, the one she had tried to save from devastating betrayal, was choosing to believe his betrayer. David, please, she pleaded, her voice breaking. You know who I really am. You know I would never. That's enough, Miss Santos, Leandro said, stepping down from the stage and walking toward her, a cruel smile twisting his lips. The act is over. The security guards grasped Anna's arms, but she pulled away with quiet dignity. I can walk on my own, she said, her voice regaining its composure. Even as tears blurred her vision, Anna's resolve remained unbroken. As the guards escorted her towards the auditorium doors, she paused, turning to face David one last time, her voice ringing with conviction. When the truth comes out, David, she declared, ensuring her words reached every ear. Remember this day. You had the chance to stand for what's right, and you deliberately chose the opposite. David visibly recoiled as though struck by her words. His eyes squeezed shut against the force of her condemnation. Under the watchful gazes of her colleagues, a mix of pity and thinly veiled relief etched on their faces, Anna was led from the building. On the sidewalk, a seasoned security guard, his face etched with discomfort, handed her a cardboard box containing her meager personal belongings. I'm truly sorry, Miss Santos, he muttered, shamefaced. Orders are orders, you understand? Anna simply nodded, accepting the box, her heart heavy with a blend of humiliation and betrayal. Yet, overshadowing these emotions was the gnawing awareness that David was unwittingly walking headfirst into a meticulously crafted trap, and she was powerless to stop him. Back in the auditorium, David remained seated long after the last employee had departed. Leandro approached him, placing a comforting hand on his shoulder. This is tough, David, I know, he said, his voice oozing insincere sympathy. She seemed like such a promising employee, but sometimes, people disappoint us. David scrutinized his friend, searching for any flicker of deception in his eyes, but Leandro's concern appeared genuine. The evidence was damning, David murmured, more to himself than to Leandro. Undeniably, Leandro agreed, his gaze unwavering. Now, we must focus on what truly matters. The merger with Sterling. He continued, his voice laced with ambition. Our company is on the cusp of becoming an empire, David. We can't allow disloyal employees to jeopardize our vision. David nodded slowly, yet a nagging doubt persisted, refusing to be silenced. He couldn't shake the memory of the raw, desperate honesty in Anna's voice as she pleaded with him. "Shall we reschedule the signing for tomorrow morning?" Leandro pressed, eager to move forward. "First thing, no further delays." "Yes," David replied mechanically, still grappling with the whirlwind of events. First thing. As he exited the auditorium, David was haunted by the unsettling feeling that he had just committed a grave error. Meanwhile, across the sprawling cityscape of Chicago, Anna Santos walked the streets, clutching her box of belongings and her broken heart. Despite the crushing weight of her dismissal, she remained steadfast in her determination to find a way to save the man who had failed to save her. Sleep eluded David that night. The image of Anna being escorted out of the building replayed endlessly in his mind. The desperation in her voice, the way she had called out his name, begging him to intervene, haunted him. He had remained silent. At 3 a.m., unable to bear the torment any longer, he threw off the covers, dressed quickly, and drove to the office. The building stood silent and deserted, save for the night security personnel patrolling the corridors. Using his access card, David summoned the executive elevator. Something about Leandro's accusations simply didn't add up. Anna possessed an undeniable mastery of corporate contracts, a keen eye for detail that allowed her to spot discrepancies that would elude the average person. Why would someone with such specialized knowledge risk everything to sell company secrets? And why would she jeopardize her own position to warn him of a betrayal if she were complicit in corporate espionage? Reaching his office, David switched on his computer, resolving to conduct his own investigation. He began by meticulously reviewing the merger files with Sterling Corporation. He scrutinized every document, every spreadsheet, every appended contract. Initially, everything appeared in order. But Anna had alluded to hidden clauses, suggesting that the devil was in the details. 3 hours later, he stumbled upon the first anomaly. On page 47 of the main contract, he found a reference to Addendum C, a document he had never encountered before. According to the contract, this addendum contained crucial technical specifications and details regarding post-merger asset distribution. However, when he searched the digital folder, Addendum C was conspicuously absent. Intrigued, David accessed the company's main server. Using his CEO credentials, he navigated through layers of security to reach the most heavily protected files. Finally, buried within an encrypted folder he had never known existed, he found what he was looking for: Addendum C post-merger asset distribution. As he opened the file, a chill ran down his spine. The document stipulated that after the merger, a staggering 80% of Miller Technologies' assets would be transferred to a previously unheard-of subsidiary called Sterling International Holdings. Further investigation revealed that Sterling International Holdings was registered in the Cayman Islands and had only 2 principal shareholders, Leandro Vega and Sofia Delgado. "This can't be," David murmured, rereading the document multiple times in disbelief. Yet the evidence was irrefutable, laid out in precise legal terms. The scheme was both ingenious and ruthless. David would sign the contract believing he was retaining majority control of the company, when in reality he would be handing over virtually everything to a shell corporation secretly controlled by his closest friend and his former lover. He printed the incriminating document and continued his search. Using his elevated access, he delved into the company's banking records. The information he unearthed confirmed his worst fears. Over the past 2 months, a series of suspicious merger preparation transfers had been executed, totaling a staggering $23 million. The funds were ostensibly destined for Sterling Corporation accounts, but David noticed a discrepancy. The account numbers didn't match those listed in the original contract. Using his access to the corporate banking system, David traced the actual destination of the funds. The entire $23 million had been funneled into a personal account under the name L. Vega, Leandro Vega. 15 years of friendship, David whispered, reeling from the betrayal as if struck by a physical blow. But there was more. David discovered email correspondence between Leandro and Sterling executives from which he had been deliberately excluded. These messages revealed that the merger was, in fact, a meticulously orchestrated hostile takeover. Sterling Corporation was nothing more than a front for the elaborate scam Leandro and Sophia had concocted. In one email, dated 3 weeks prior, Leandro boasted, "David is utterly naive. 15 years of friendship have blinded him to the possibility of betrayal. By the time he realizes what's happened, we'll have full control of the assets and be long gone." Sophia retorted, "He really is too predictable." David was forced to pause, his hands trembling as he gripped the mouse. His best friend, the man who had been his best man, who had wept with him at his mother's funeral, who had stood by him as they built the company from the ground up, was plotting to destroy him. He continued his investigation, uncovering even more layers of the plot. After David signed the contract, Leandro would announce an emergency restructuring, citing fabricated financial difficulties. David would be forced to resign as CEO for the good of the company, and Leandro would seize control. The true assets would then be transferred to Sterling International Holdings, leaving David with nothing but debts and legal liabilities. The plan was so intricately crafted that David felt a perverse sense of admiration mingled with his disgust. Leandro had dedicated months, perhaps even years, to meticulously planning every detail. David even unearthed recorded phone calls stored by the company's security system. One recording from 2 weeks earlier captured a conversation between Leandro and Sophia. "Leandro, are you certain David won't suspect anything?" Sophia asked. Leandro chuckled. "I dated him for 2 years, Sophia. I know every one of his weaknesses. David trusts people implicitly. It's both his greatest strength and his most glaring flaw. What if he discovers the truth before the signing? He won't. But if he does, we have the forged documents ready. We can claim he was attempting to commit fraud himself. My word against his. You truly despise him that much?" "It's not hatred, it's ambition," Sophia replied coldly. "David was a decent boyfriend, but he was always limited, too small for my aspirations. With you, I can attain everything I've ever desired." David paused the recording, feeling physically ill. Sophia had ended their relationship 2 years prior, claiming they wanted different things in life. The truth was far more calculated. She had simply been seeking someone more ambitious, someone more willing to cross ethical boundaries. By 6 a.m., David had amassed enough evidence to send Leandro and Sophia to prison. But he also faced a painful realization. Ana Santos had attempted to save him, and he had turned his back on her when she needed him most. He recalled her parting words. "When you find out the truth, remember you had a chance to do the right thing today, and you chose not to." She had been right. Now, David had to find a way to rectify his egregious mistake. But first, he had to ensure that Leandro and Sophia remained unaware of his discovery. The signing meeting was scheduled for 9 a.m., a mere 3 hours away. David copied all the files onto a flash drive and emailed them to himself from multiple anonymous accounts. Then, he cleared his browser history and shut down the computer. As he was leaving the office, his phone rang. It was Leandro. "David, I'm relieved you answered," Leandro said, his voice dripping with insincere concern. "I couldn't sleep after yesterday's incident with the cleaning lady. I know it shook you up." "I'm fine," David replied, struggling to maintain a steady tone. "It was difficult, but you were right. The evidence was conclusive. I'm glad you understand." David could detect the undisguised relief in Leandro's voice. "Are you prepared for today's meeting? Our big moment has finally arrived." "Of course." 9 a.m. "Correct?" "Precisely, David. I want you to know that regardless of what transpires in business, our friendship will always be paramount to me." David closed his eyes, stung by the sheer hypocrisy of the statement. "To me as well, Leandro. To me as well." As he hung up, David knew precisely what he had to do. Not only to save his company, but to atone for his treatment of the courageous woman who had risked everything to warn him of the impending betrayal. Ana Santos had tried to save him. Now it was his turn to save her. But first he had to find her. And after publicly humiliating her the day before, David wasn't certain she would even be willing to speak to him. Staring out the window of his office, Watching Chicago awaken under the morning sun, David Miller prepared for the most important battle of his life. A battle not only for his company but for his very soul. He had learned a painful lesson. Sometimes, the most crucial individuals in our lives are those brave enough to voice the truths we are unwilling to hear. And Ana Santos had done precisely that. Now it was time to honor her courage with his own. David canceled the meeting with Sterling Corporation, feigning a family emergency. Leandro was incensed, but David remained unconcerned. He had more pressing matters to address. Using HR records, David obtained Ana's address, 847 Lincoln Street, apartment 2B, in the Pilsen neighborhood on Chicago's South Side. It was one of the city's less affluent areas, predominantly Latino, where many immigrant families toiled tirelessly in low-paying jobs. David had never ventured into Pilsen before. As he drove down the narrow streets, he couldn't help but notice the stark contrast between this neighborhood and the world he inhabited. Old brick buildings with rusted fire escapes, small businesses with signs in Spanish, children playing on cracked sidewalks, a world removed from the gleaming skyscrapers of the financial district. He parked his BMW in front of a dilapidated three-story building, its paint peeling and windows patched with tape. David ascended the creaking stairs to the second floor. He paused before door 2B, taking a deep breath before knocking. Shuffling footsteps approached the door, which opened a crack, secured by a safety chain. Through the opening, David saw a portion of Ana's face, her eyes swollen and red-rimmed, suggesting a sleepless night of tears. "What do you want?" she asked, her voice icy. "Ana, I need to speak with you. I know the truth about Leandro and Sofia." "Oh, you just found out?" Ana gave a bitter, humorless laugh. "How convenient. After you humiliated me in front of 200 people? Please just allow me to explain." "There's nothing to explain." Ana started to close the door, but David placed his hand against it. "Ana, you were right about everything. I found the proof, the contract, the bank transfers, the shell company, everything." Ana paused but didn't open the door any wider. "And what do you expect me to do with that now? You already fired me. You ruined my reputation. I have nothing left to lose or gain." "Yes, you do. I can clear your name. I can, Ana." "Who is it?" A weak voice called from inside the apartment. Ana sighed, looking at David through the narrow opening. "It's my sister. She's not well." "Please," David pleaded. 5 minutes. I simply want to offer a proper apology." Ana remained silent for a long moment, visibly torn. Finally, she unhooked the chain and opened the door. The apartment was small and modest, yet impeccably clean and organized. The furniture was old but well-maintained. Family photos on the wall depicted Ana and a younger woman smiling in happier times. "Maria," Ana called. "We have a visitor." A young woman around 22 years old entered the room. She was clearly Ana's sister, sharing the same brown eyes and delicate features, but she appeared frail and ill, her skin pale and her movements slow and labored. "Hi," Maria said with a faint smile. "You must be Ana's boss." David felt a pang of guilt. Ana had lost her job but had not yet revealed this fact to her sister. "Former boss," Ana corrected quickly. "David, this is my sister, Maria." "Maria, this is David Miller." Maria extended a frail hand, and David shook it gently. "Ana speaks about you frequently," Maria said. "She says you're different from other bosses, more human." David glanced at Ana, who averted her eyes, clearly embarrassed. "Maria, why don't you return to your room and rest?" Ana suggested. "The doctor said you need to conserve your energy." "All right." Maria moved slowly toward the hallway, then paused. "It was a pleasure meeting you, Mr. Miller. Please take care of my sister. She's the bravest person I know." After Maria exited the room, David turned to Ana. "Why didn't you tell me how serious her condition is?" "I knew she needed surgery." Ana sat on the worn-out couch. "I didn't believe I needed to elaborate on the details." "What kind of surgery?" Ana hesitated before answering. "A heart valve transplant. Maria was born with a congenital defect. Her current valve is failing. Without the surgery, her voice trailed off, choked with emotion. The doctors say she might have 6 months. David felt as though he had been sucker-punched. Anna had been dealing with all of this alone, working as a janitor to maintain her sister's health insurance, and he had fired her precisely when she needed it most. "How much does the surgery cost?" $200,000, Anna replied, wiping her eyes. The company health plan covered 60%. I was saving for the rest, working extra jobs on the weekends. "Anna, I can pay for it." "No." She stood up abruptly. "I don't want your pity or your charity." "It's not pity, it's responsibility." David stood up as well. "I made a terrible mistake yesterday. I treated you unfairly." "You didn't treat me unfairly?" Anna's voice was filled with pain. "You betrayed me. You knew who I was. You knew I was trying to help you, and yet you remained silent. While Leandro humiliated me," David continued, "I was conflicted, torn between your best friend and a janitor." Anna cut him off. "And you chose your best friend, even knowing he was lying." David ran his hands through his hair in frustration. "You're right, completely right. I was cowardly and selfish, but now I know the truth, and I want to make amends." "Some things cannot be made right, David," Anna said, walking to the window and staring out at the street. "I lost my job, my reputation, and more importantly, I lost Maria's health coverage. All because I tried to do the right thing. Let me help, please." "Why?" Anna turned to face him. "Because you feel guilty? Because you want to ease your conscience? Because you're the bravest person I've ever met." The words tumbled out with a sincerity that even surprised David. "You risked everything to save me from betrayal, and I abandoned you when you needed me most." Anna studied him for a long moment. "Maria needs the surgery in 2 weeks. Without insurance, I'll have to pay for it myself. I don't have the money. I'll pay for it today." "And in return?" "Nothing." David shook his head. "Absolutely nothing. It's the least I can do." Anna gave a humorless laugh. "The least you can do is leave my apartment and my life. I don't trust you anymore, David. You had the opportunity to demonstrate who you truly are, and you did." "Anna, please." She walked to the door and opened it. "Maria needs to rest, and I need to look for another job." David hesitated at the doorway. "This isn't over. I'm going to expose Leandro and Sophia. I will clear your name." "Do whatever you want," Anna said without meeting his gaze. "But do it without me." David walked out of the apartment with a heavy heart. As he descended the stairs, he heard the door close behind him and the lock click into place. Outside, sitting in his BMW, David looked at the modest building where Anna and Maria were struggling to survive. He had uncovered Leandro's treachery, but he had lost something far more valuable: the trust of the only person who had attempted to save him. Now, he had to find a way to earn that trust back, for he was beginning to realize that Anna Santos was not just the key to exposing the deception. She was becoming the most important person in his life. Over the following 3 days, David was consumed by thoughts of Anna and Maria. He had indefinitely postponed the merger with Sterling Corporation, citing the need for further legal review. Leandro grew increasingly agitated and insistent, but David managed to stall for time. Meanwhile, he discreetly explored ways to assist the Santos sisters without Anna's knowledge. He couldn't simply appear at their doorstep with a check. Anna had made it abundantly clear that she would not accept direct help from him. On Wednesday morning, David had an idea. He contacted Northwestern Memorial Hospital, where Maria was receiving treatment, and managed to speak with Dr. Rodriguez, the cardiologist overseeing her case. "Dr. Rodriguez, my name is David Miller. I would like to discuss Maria Santos's case." "I'm sorry, sir, but I cannot disclose patient information to unauthorized individuals." "I fully understand," David said, choosing his words carefully. "I am not requesting medical details. I am interested in making an anonymous donation to cover the cost of her surgery." There was a pause on the other end. "An anonymous donation?" "Precisely. I would like the family to believe it originated from a medical scholarship or a social support program, something that would not arouse suspicion." "Mr. Miller, that is exceptionally generous." May I ask what your relationship is to the patient? Let's just say I owe the Santos family a considerable debt. David hesitated. Is it possible to arrange this without revealing my identity? Yes, we have an anonymous donor program for cases such as this. I can schedule the surgery for next week if the funds are secured. They will be. I will transfer the funds today. On Thursday afternoon, Anna received a phone call that changed everything. Miss Santos. Dr. Rodriguez's voice sounded cheerful. I have wonderful news regarding Maria. Anna's heart began to race. Is she all right? She is stable, but this is something else. We have received approval for a federal medical aid program for severe heart cases. Maria's surgery will be fully covered. Anna almost dropped the phone. What do you mean? We never applied for any program. Sometimes, hospitals automatically apply on behalf of eligible patients. What matters is that we can schedule the surgery for next Tuesday. When she hung up, Anna was weeping with relief. She rushed to Maria's room, where her sister was resting. Maria. Anna gently shook her. We did it. The surgery will be entirely covered. Maria slowly opened her eyes, still drowsy from the medication. What do you mean? A government program. They are paying for everything. Anna carefully embraced her sister. You are going to be all right, Maria. You are going to be perfectly fine. David learned that his donation had been successful. When Dr. Rodriguez called to confirm the surgery was scheduled, he felt a sense of gratification he hadn't experienced in years. The satisfaction of performing a truly selfless act. However, the challenge of regaining Anna's trust remained. And for that, he needed a different kind of strategy. On Friday night, David was strolling through Millennium Park when an idea struck him. Anna had mentioned working extra jobs on the weekends to save money. Perhaps she was still doing so, even after losing her position at Miller Technologies. David spent the entire day searching for her. He visited cafes, restaurants, and offices that employed weekend cleaning staff. Finally, at 5 p.m., he found her. Anna was cleaning the windows of a small accounting office on North Michigan Avenue. She was dressed in simple attire, her hair pulled back in a ponytail. Even while performing manual labor, she exuded a quiet dignity that David found inspiring. He waited across the street until she had finished and exited the building. Anna, he said, approaching her cautiously. She turned, surprised and visibly annoyed. Are you following me now? No. I mean, yes, but not in the way you think, David stammered, struggling to find the right words. I heard about Maria's surgery, that it was approved by a government program. Anna regarded him with suspicion. So? I am happy for you. Truly happy. Thank you. She started walking toward the subway station. David walked alongside her. Anna, can I speak with you? Just 5 minutes. About what? About how terrible I feel about what happened. About how you were correct about everything. About how I want to make things right this time. Anna stopped and faced him. David, I understand you feel guilty, but as I said before, I do not need your pity. It's not pity. David took a deep breath. It's admiration, respect, and something more I am still trying to understand. Anna frowned. Something more? You made me question everything I thought I knew about myself. David stepped closer. About loyalty, about courage, about doing what's right, even when it's difficult. David, please allow me to finish. He continued. You risked everything to save me from betrayal, and when it was my turn to defend you, I failed. But that taught me something crucial about who I truly am and who I want to become. Anna looked at him in silence for a long moment. And who do you want to become? Someone worthy of the courage you displayed. Someone who does not allow fear or blind loyalty to obstruct what is right. The frigid Chicago wind swirled around them, and Anna pulled her coat tighter. It's cold out here, she said, glancing around. There's a coffee shop on the corner. We can talk there. The small cafe was almost deserted. They sat at a table. At a cozy table by the window, 2 steaming mugs of hot chocolate sat between Anna and David, the sweet aroma mingling with the anticipation hanging in the air. So, Anna began, stirring her drink with a small spoon, her gaze meeting David's across the table. "What did you discover about Leandro and Sophia?" David reached into his backpack, retrieving a thick folder which he laid on the table between them with a resolute thud. "Everything," he stated, his voice firm. "The entire, meticulously crafted plan." He opened the folder, revealing a collection of documents, copies of shell company registrations, records of complex wire transfers, and a sham contract designed to legitimize their scheme. They were planning to steal 80% of my assets. Decimate Miller Technologies. Anna's eyes darted across the pages, her brow furrowing as she absorbed the details of the betrayal. David watched as a flash of disbelief and then anger crossed her face. "This is even more twisted than I imagined," she murmured, looking up at him, her expression a mix of concern and resolve. "What are you going to do? Expose them? Publicly?" "On Monday," David declared, leaning in closer, his voice low and determined. "But I need your help, Anna. It's incomplete without you." Anna's eyebrows arched in surprise. "My help? You still possess the original photographs, the recordings," David urged. "I need your evidence to make the case undeniable." A thoughtful silence descended as Anna considered his proposition, weighing the risks and potential consequences. "And after Leandro and Sophia are exposed?" she finally asked, her voice tentative. "Then what?" David hesitated for a brief moment, a flicker of vulnerability in his eyes. "Then, I would like you to return to Miller Technologies, not as a member of the cleaning staff but as the vice president of operations." Anna nearly choked on her hot chocolate, a surprised laugh escaping her lips. "Vice president? David, I can't believe it. You possess the knowledge, the experience, and, above all, the integrity that the company desperately needs," David insisted, his gaze unwavering. "Miller Technologies needs people like you in leadership. You understand the company from the ground up in a way that no one else does." "David, this is—" Anna shook her head, struggling to find the words. "It's crazy. You're not just anything, Anna," David interrupted, reaching across the table to cover her hand with his. "You're brilliant, brave, and utterly honest. Those are precisely the qualities I need by my side." They sat in comfortable silence for a few minutes, the weight of the conversation settling between them like a tangible presence. "Can I think about it?" Anna finally asked, breaking the quiet. "Of course," David replied, squeezing her hand gently. "But, Anna, no matter what you decide about the job, I'd like to have you in my life in some way." Anna looked at his hand, then up into his earnest eyes, searching for any hint of ulterior motive. "David, we come from very different worlds." "I used to believe that," he confessed, shaking his head slightly. "But I don't anymore. We're just two people who believe in doing what's right, even when it's difficult." As they left the cafe, night had fallen, casting a shimmering glow across the city. The lights of Chicago sparkled like a million scattered diamonds, creating an almost magical atmosphere. They strolled slowly toward the subway station, savoring the last moments of the evening, neither eager to part. "David," Anna said softly as they reached the entrance to the station, her voice carrying on the cool night air. "Thank you for today, for listening, for being different than I thought you were, and for giving me a second chance. I know I didn't deserve it." They stood beneath the flickering streetlights, gazing into each other's eyes. Anna looked radiant, her cheeks flushed with the cold, her eyes shining like the stars above. "Anna?" David stepped closer, his voice barely above a whisper. "Yes? Can I kiss you?" Anna hesitated for only a heartbeat, then nodded, her eyes sparkling with a mixture of apprehension and excitement. David leaned in, his lips meeting hers in a gentle, tentative kiss at first, then growing more confident and passionate as she responded. It was a sweet kiss, full of unspoken promises and the anticipation of new beginnings. When they finally pulled apart, both were smiling, their eyes shining with a newfound hope. "This just made things infinitely more complicated," Anna murmured, her smile betraying her true feelings. "The best things in life usually do," David replied, his voice laced with warmth and affection. Anna laughed, a light, airy sound that echoed in the night. She turned toward the subway entrance, ready to head home, but eager for what the future might hold. "I'll call you tomorrow," she said, pausing at the top of the stairs, "to go over the plan for Monday, and to talk about us." "And to talk about us," she confirmed, her voice playful before disappearing down the stairs. David stood on the sidewalk for several minutes, his gaze fixed on the stars above Chicago. For the first time in weeks, a sense of profound relief washed over him. He felt like everything was going to be okay. On Monday, he would confront Leandro and Sophia, exposing their deceit to the world. But this time, he wouldn't be alone. He would have Anna by his side, and that made all the difference. On Monday morning, David arrived at the Miller Technologies office, his heart pounding with a mix of apprehension and resolve. He had spent all of Sunday with Anna, meticulously planning every detail of their strategy to expose Leandro and Sophia. They had scheduled an emergency board meeting for 2 p.m., where they intended to present all the irrefutable evidence of the betrayal. David carefully stored the most incriminating documents in his personal safe, ensuring their security, and prepared meticulously crafted copies to distribute during the meeting. Despite the lingering anxiety, a wave of confidence washed over him. Anna would arrive at noon to finalize any last-minute details. At 10 a.m., Leandro barged into David's office without so much as a knock, his face contorted with an unfamiliar fury. "David, we need to talk," Leandro stated, his voice dripping with a menacing undertone David had never heard before, a chilling departure from their usual camaraderie. "Sure," David replied, struggling to maintain a calm and composed demeanor. "About what exactly?" Leandro slammed the door shut behind him, his movements sharp and deliberate. He stepped closer to David's desk, his eyes narrowed with suspicion. "About your little late-night investigation on Friday." A jolt of icy dread shot through David's veins, his blood turning to ice. I don't know what you're talking about," he stammered, attempting to feign ignorance. "Don't lie to me, David," Leandro sneered, pulling up a chair and sinking into it, crossing his legs with an air of arrogance. "Do you honestly think I'm stupid? That I wouldn't notice someone accessing confidential files in the dead of night?" David struggled to maintain a neutral expression, concealing the rising panic within. "I have the right to access any file within my own company." "Oh, yes, your company?" Leandro scoffed, a humorless laugh escaping his lips. "For now, anyway." "What's that supposed to mean?" David challenged, his voice tinged with defiance. Leandro reached into his pocket, producing his smartphone and placing it deliberately on the table between them. "It means I know exactly what you found. I know you spoke with the cleaning lady. And I know about your grand plan to expose me this afternoon." David shot to his feet, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. How do I know?" Leandro interrupted, his eyes gleaming with malice. "David, you are even more naive than I initially thought. Did you honestly believe I didn't have people keeping me informed of your every move?" The office door swung open once again, and Sophia glided into the room, her presence adding another layer of tension to the already charged atmosphere. She looked impeccably polished, as always, but there was an unsettling coldness in her eyes, a chilling detachment David had never witnessed before. "Hello, David," Sophia purred, her voice laced with venom. She strolled over to Leandro, planting a kiss on his cheek with calculated affection. "I missed you terribly over the weekend, darling." "Sophia?" David stammered, utterly confused by her presence and demeanor. "What are you doing here?" "I'm here to witness your surrender, of course," she replied, settling onto the armrest of Leandro's chair, possessively running her fingers through his hair. "Surrender," David echoed, his voice laced with disbelief. Leandro flashed a chilling smile and unlocked his phone. "David, you're going to cancel that ridiculous board meeting. You're going to destroy all the evidence you've gathered, and you're going to sign the Sterling Corporation contract today. Are you out of your mind?" David exploded, his voice rising in indignation. After everything I've discovered about you too? No, David, Leandro countered, tilting his phone to display the screen. After what I've discovered about you. On the screen, David saw a series of photographs. Himself entering Anna's apartment building in Pilsen, engaging in conversation with her at the cafe, and finally, kissing her on the street. So what? David frowned, struggling to understand the implications. There's nothing wrong with. Oh, isn't there? Sophia interjected, leaning forward, her eyes narrowed with a predatory gleam. David, you used confidential company information to locate a former employee. Then you used company funds to pay for her sister's life-saving surgery. David felt the ground crumble beneath his feet, his mind reeling from the sheer audacity of their accusations. How do you know about the anonymous $200,000 donation? Leandro erupted with laughter, his amusement cutting through the tension like a knife. David, did you honestly believe you could move that kind of money without me noticing? Please, it doesn't prove anything illegal. It proves abuse of power. Plain and simple, Sophia retorted, pulling a thick folder from her designer purse. It proves you were romantically involved with an employee who had access to sensitive information. It proves you paid a large sum of money to influence a witness. David snatched the folder from her grasp, frantically flipping through the documents. They were all expertly forged. Fake contracts, fabricated emails, altered bank records. Everything meticulously designed to paint a picture of him exploiting the company for his personal gain, showering Anna with illicit benefits in exchange for her loyalty. This is all fake, David exclaimed, his voice laced with desperation. Of course, it is, Leandro sneered, rising to his feet. But who is going to believe you, David? A CEO who got involved with a mere cleaning lady and used company funds to impress her? A man blinded by lust? You can't do this, David pleaded, his voice filled with a mixture of anger and despair. We can and we will, Sophia hissed, stepping closer to David, her eyes gleaming with malice. Unless you cooperate, that is. David stared at Leandro and Sophia, two people he had once considered his closest friends, whom he had loved and trusted without reservation. Now he saw them for who they truly were, ruthless, calculating, and completely devoid of empathy. He realized with a chilling certainty that he had never truly known them at all. What do you want? He asked, his voice barely a whisper. I already told you, David, Leandro said, returning to his seat and casually crossing his legs once more. Cancel the meeting. Destroy the evidence. Sign the contract. End of story. And if I don't? Leandro tapped his phone again, displaying another photograph to David. It was a picture of Anna and Maria leaving the hospital after a doctor's appointment, their faces etched with worry. Then Miss Santos and her chronically ill sister will soon discover what happens to people who stick their noses where they don't belong. A surge of pure, unadulterated rage coursed through David's veins, his fists clenching at his sides. Don't you dare threaten them, he snarled, his voice trembling with fury. It's not a threat, David. It's a promise, Leandro replied, pocketing his phone. I have contacts all over Chicago. One phone call from me, and Anna Santos won't be able to find work anywhere in this city. And her little sister, well, accidents happen, especially to people in poor health. You're a monster, David spat, his voice dripping with disgust. I'm a businessman, David, Leandro said, adjusting his tie with a smirk. And you, my old friend, are a problem that needs to be dealt with. David turned to Sophia, desperately searching her eyes for some trace of the woman he had fallen in love with years ago, a woman he believed to be kind, compassionate, and principled. Sophia, do you really agree with this? Threatening innocent people? Sophia threw her head back and laughed, the sound cold and calculated, devoid of any warmth or genuine emotion. David, you were always so hopelessly romantic, so pathetically idealistic. Didn't you ever wonder why I broke up with you? You did, didn't you? David stared at her, dumbfounded. What? I broke up with you because you were poor, she said, her voice dripping with disdain. Well, not poor exactly, but limited. You were building a small company, dreaming small. Leandro offered me the chance to be truly wealthy, beyond your wildest dreams. David stared at her, reeling from the revelation. You never loved me, he finally said, the realization hitting him like a physical blow. I loved your ambitions, Sophia sneered. I loved the potential of what you could become. But when I saw that Leandro was willing to do whatever it took to succeed, while you clung to your precious moral principles, well, the choice was obvious. Moral principles? David scoffed, pulling his hand away from her touch. You say that like it's a bad thing. In the business world, it is, Leandro stated, stepping closer to David, his eyes glinting with malice. David, you built a $500 million company while limiting yourself with ethics and morals. Just imagine what you could have achieved if you'd been a little more flexible. I don't want to achieve anything that way, David retorted, his voice filled with conviction. And that's why you'll lose everything, Sophia said, moving to stand alongside Leandro, her arm looped through his. Because in the end, people like you always lose to people like us. David looked at the two of them, standing hand in hand, their faces contorted with cruelty. 15 years of friendship with Leandro, 2 years in a relationship with Sophia, all built on a foundation of lies and deceit. You have 1 hour to decide, David, Leandro said, glancing at his expensive wristwatch. Noon. Either you sign the contract or we destroy you and everything you care about. And Anna? David asked, his voice trembling with concern. If I cooperate, will you leave her alone? If you cooperate and keep your mouth shut, Anna Santos and her sister can go on living their small, insignificant lives in peace, Leandro replied, opening the office door. But if you try to cross us again. He didn't finish the sentence, but the threat hung heavy in the air, leaving no room for misinterpretation. After they departed, David collapsed back into his chair, his body feeling drained and lifeless. He gazed out the window at the sprawling cityscape of Chicago, the city he had called home for most of his adult life. Now, it felt cold and unfamiliar, a hostile landscape filled with danger and uncertainty. His phone rang, shattering the silence. It was Anna. David, I'm arriving at the building now. Is everything ready for the meeting? David squeezed his eyes shut, his mind torn between conflicting desires. If he told Anna the truth, he would be placing her and Maria in grave danger, potentially exposing them to Leandro and Sophia's ruthless vengeance. But if he lied, if he pretended that everything was fine, he knew he would never be able to live with himself. David, are you there? Anna asked, her voice filled with concern. You sound strange. I'm here, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Anna, about the meeting. Yes? David glanced at the folder containing the damning evidence, then at the forged documents Sophia had left behind. 2 versions of the truth vying for dominance. One could save his company, preserving his legacy and financial security. The other could protect the woman he was beginning to love, shielding her from harm at the cost of everything he had worked so hard to achieve. I need to cancel it, he said, his voice barely audible. Cancel it? Why? Anna asked, her voice laced with alarm. Legal complications, David lied, hating himself for the deception. We need more time to review the details. A tense silence hung in the air, broken only by the faint hum of the office building. David, are you okay? You sound different. I'm fine, he lied again, the words tasting like ash in his mouth. Just a change of plans. I'll explain later. All right? Anna replied, her voice still tinged with suspicion. Talk later. Of course, David murmured, ending the call and burying his face in his hands. For the first time in his adult life, he felt utterly and completely defeated. Leandro and Sophia had won, outmaneuvering him at every turn. He didn't know how to fight against people who were willing to threaten the innocent, willing to sacrifice everything for their own selfish ambitions. Outside, Anna stood on the sidewalk in front of the Miller Technologies building, looking up at the imposing structure with a growing sense of unease. Something felt terribly wrong. The sudden cancellation of the meeting, the strange, strained tone in David's voice, the way he had avoided eye contact when they briefly met in the lobby. Anna had worked with people for over 15 years, honing her instincts and learning how to read the subtle signs that revealed the truth beneath the surface. And right now, every fiber of her being was screaming that David was in trouble. That night, Anna made a daring decision. She would investigate on her own, determined to uncover the truth and protect David from whatever danger he was facing. As a former member of the cleaning staff, she possessed an intimate knowledge of every entrance and exit in the Miller Technologies building, every hidden passage and security protocol. At 9 p.m., with only the night security staff on duty, she utilized her knowledge of the access codes, which were rarely changed, to slip into the building through the basement entrance. Moving stealthily through the darkened corridors, she took the service stairs to the executive floor, her heart pounding in her chest. Her goal was simple: to find out why David had abruptly changed his mind, what had prompted him to cancel the meeting and betray the carefully laid plans they had made together. In Leandro's office, she found what she was looking for. Unlocked drawers, papers strewn across the desk, the unmistakable signs of someone in a hurry. Anna quickly began documenting everything with her phone, taking pictures of the chaos. She photographed the forged contracts bearing David's signature, the fabricated emails, the manipulated bank records, all the evidence that pointed to a carefully orchestrated scheme to frame David and seize control of his company. But what made her blood run cold was the discovery of printed surveillance photographs of her and Maria leaving the hospital, their faces clearly visible. Scrawled in the margins were handwritten notes: secondary target and pressure point. Anna understood instantly. Leandro had discovered David's investigation and was using her and Maria as leverage, threatening their safety to force David into compliance. Acting quickly, she searched for any hidden recording devices, knowing that Leandro was likely monitoring David's every move. Inside a pen holder on Leandro's desk, she found a small, inconspicuous digital recorder, likely used to capture incriminating conversations. Anna swiftly checked the audio files, her fingers flying across the device. There were dozens of recordings, including conversations between Leandro and Sophia plotting their betrayal, revealing the extent of their greed and ruthlessness. But the most recent recording, from earlier that afternoon, made her heart leap into her throat. It was a recording of Leandro threatening David, explicitly using her and Maria as blackmail, outlining the consequences of defying their demands. Without hesitation, Anna copied all the files to her phone and slipped out of the building, moving as quietly and efficiently as she had entered, her mind racing with a plan to turn the tables on Leandro and Sophia. At 6 a.m. on Tuesday, Anna rang the doorbell at David's apartment in Lincoln Park, her knuckles rapping urgently against the door. He answered in a bathrobe, his hair disheveled, his eyes filled with exhaustion. He looked as if he hadn't slept in days. "Anna, what are you doing here so early?" he stammered, his voice groggy with sleep. "I need to talk to you," she said, her voice firm and urgent. "It's imperative that we speak now, before it's too late." David hesitated for a moment, then reluctantly stepped aside, allowing her to enter. He was visibly nervous, his movements fidgety as he closed the door behind her. "Anna, about yesterday," he began, his voice laced with apprehension. "There are complications you don't understand." "I understand perfectly," Anna countered, pulling her phone from her purse and holding it up for him to see. "I know Leandro is blackmailing you because of me, because of Maria." David stared at her, shocked, his face paling. "How did you—" "I heard the recording," Anna interrupted, pressing play on her phone. Leandro's voice echoed through the apartment, his threats reverberating in the small space. When the recording ended, David sank heavily onto the couch, his face buried in his hands. "Anna, you don't understand the danger," he groaned, his voice filled with despair. "He threatened you. He threatened Maria. I can't take that risk. I won't risk your lives." Anna sat beside him, reaching out to take his hands in hers. Leandro made a fatal mistake. He recorded his own threats. He incriminated himself. David lifted his head, a flicker of hope igniting in his eyes. "What do you mean?" I have proof of everything, Anna declared, her voice filled with determination. The recordings, the forged documents, the surveillance photographs. I have it all, David. We have enough to bring them down completely. But what about the threats? David asked, his voice filled with concern. If we expose them, they're still out there. They can still hurt you. Not if they're behind bars, they can't, Anna countered, her grip tightening on his hands. Trust me, David. We have to act today, before they realize we've uncovered their entire scheme. We have to take the fight to them. We have to expose them before they have a chance to strike first. David looked at her for a long moment, studying the courage in her eyes, the unwavering determination in her voice. He saw the strength and resilience that had allowed her to overcome so many obstacles in her life, the unwavering commitment to doing what was right, even in the face of overwhelming adversity. He knew that she was right. He couldn't back down. He couldn't let Leandro and Sophia get away with their treachery. He had to fight back, not just for himself, but for Anna and Maria, and for everyone who had ever been wronged by their greed and ambition. What do you suggest? He asked, his voice filled with newfound resolve. Reschedule the board meeting for today, Anna replied, standing and pacing the room as she laid out her plan. 2 o'clock, sharp. But this time we'll be ready for them. This time we'll be the ones in control. At 2 p.m. that afternoon, the Miller Technologies auditorium was packed to capacity. All the board members were present, along with representatives from Sterling Corporation and several key company executives, their faces etched with curiosity and anticipation. David stood on the stage, his demeanor visibly nervous, but his eyes filled with a steely determination. Leandro and Sophia were seated in the front row, their faces betraying an air of smug confidence, clearly expecting David to announce the successful completion of the merger agreement. Ladies and gentlemen, David began, his voice resonating through the auditorium. I've called this meeting to make some important announcements regarding the future of Miller Technologies. Leandro gave him an encouraging nod, his smile widening as he anticipated the news he was so eager to hear. First, I'd like to introduce our new Vice President of Operations, Anna Santos, David declared, his voice ringing with conviction. A ripple of surprise and confusion spread through the auditorium as Anna stepped onto the stage, her presence immediately drawing attention. Many recognized her as the former cleaning staff member who had been abruptly dismissed under suspicious circumstances, her name linked to rumors of espionage and corporate intrigue. Leandro shot to his feet, his face contorted with fury. David, this is ridiculous. You can't be serious. Please sit down, Mr. Vega. David interrupted firmly, his voice leaving no room for argument. You'll have your chance to speak soon. Anna stepped up to the microphone, her voice steady and clear, commanding the attention of the entire room. Good afternoon, she began. I know many of you remember the unfortunate circumstances surrounding my last appearance in this auditorium. Today, I'm here to reveal the truth behind those events. Anna turned on a projector, and the first image appeared on the screen, filling the vast space with its stark reality. The forged Sterling Corporation merger contract, meticulously crafted to deceive and exploit. This is the version of the merger agreement that was presented to Mr. Miller, Anna explained, her voice clear and concise. She highlighted the key numbers on the screen. According to this document, David Miller would retain 65% control of the company after the merger. She clicked to the next slide, revealing the stark contrast between the two versions. And this is the actual version of the contract, the one they intended to use at signing. Here, David Miller would retain only 15% control, effectively ceding control of his own company. A wave of murmurs erupted throughout the auditorium, the room buzzing with disbelief and outrage. Leandro's face had gone ashen, his composure cracking under the weight of the revelations. This is outrageous, Sophia exclaimed, jumping to her feet, her voice shrill with panic. These images are fake. They've been doctored. Are they? Anna retorted, her eyes gleaming with defiance. Then perhaps you'd prefer to hear this. She pressed play on the sound system, and Leandro's voice boomed through the auditorium, his words dripping with arrogance and malice. David is completely naive. 15 years of friendship has blinded him to any possibility of betrayal. By the time he realizes what's happened, we'll have full control of the assets and be out of the country, sipping cocktails on a beach in the Bahamas. The room fell into stunned silence, every eye in the auditorium fixed on Leandro, who was clearly panicking, desperately searching for a way to salvage the situation. That was taken out of context, he stammered, his voice trembling with desperation. Was it? Anna countered, her voice dripping with sarcasm. She moved on to the next recording, her finger hovering over the play button. And this? Sophia's voice filled the auditorium, her words revealing the depths of her betrayal and the cold calculation behind her actions. It's not hate, it's ambition. David was a good boyfriend, I'll admit that, but he was always limited, too small for my dreams. With you, I can have everything I've ever wanted, power, wealth, security. Everything. Sophia was visibly furious, but she struggled to maintain a facade of composure, knowing that her reputation was on the line. These recordings are illegal, she protested, her voice laced with indignation. They were obtained without my consent. Actually, Anna replied, turning to face her, her eyes glittering with satisfaction. They were taken from a recording device found in Mr. Vega's office, a device he used to record his own conversations, without the knowledge or consent of the other parties involved. Perhaps you should have been more careful about your own illegal activities. David stepped back up to the microphone, his voice filled with resolve. There's more, he said, nodding to Anna, who projected the bank records onto the screen, displaying the overwhelming evidence of their fraudulent activities. $23 million transferred from Miller Technologies' accounts to Mr. Vega's personal accounts. Anna pointed out, highlighting the transactions with a laser pointer. Money that was supposed to be used for legitimate merger preparations, siphoned off for personal enrichment. Leandro stood up, his face flushed with anger and desperation. David, we've been friends for 15 years. Are you really going to believe this cleaning lady? This brave woman who risked everything to save me from betrayal? David interrupted, his voice firm and unwavering. Yes, Leandro. I am going to believe her because, unlike you, she has never lied to me. She has shown me the truth, even when it was painful and difficult to accept. She has proven her loyalty and her integrity time and time again. Mr. Roberto, the lead representative from Sterling Corporation, rose to his feet, his face a mask of disapproval. Mr. Miller, Sterling Corporation had absolutely no knowledge of these irregularities. We are a legitimate company with a sterling reputation, and we were deceived by dishonest representatives. We find these actions abhorrent and completely disavow any association with Mr. Vega and Ms. Delgado. We completely understand, Mr. Roberto? David nodded, his voice sincere. In fact, we would like to discuss the possibility of pursuing a legitimate merger with your company in the future, on honest and transparent terms. Leandro looked around the auditorium, his eyes darting from face to face, seeing only expressions of disapproval and disgust. His facade of respectability had crumbled, his carefully constructed image shattered beyond repair. You know what? He said with a bitter laugh, his voice laced with defiance. I don't regret a thing. I was always too weak, David, too afraid to do what needed to be done. You deserve to lose everything, and you deserve what's coming to you. Actually, what's coming to you will be a lot worse, said a new voice, echoing through the auditorium. Every head swiveled toward the entrance as Detective Johnson from the Chicago Police Department strode into the room, flanked by two uniformed officers, their faces grim. Leandro Vega and Sofia Delgado, you are under arrest for corporate fraud, document forgery, attempted extortion, and a host of other charges. You have the right to remain silent. As Leandro and Sofia were led away in handcuffs, the auditorium erupted in applause, the sound washing over David and Anna like a tidal wave of vindication. Anna smiled at David, her eyes sparkling with pride. He returned her gaze, his heart overflowing with gratitude and admiration. And one more thing, Detective Johnson said, turning to address David and Anna. How did you know to come here? David asked, his voice filled with curiosity. Ms. Santos contacted us this morning with all the evidence, the detective replied, his lips curling into a smile. Cases like this, with such clear and irrefutable proof, are a prosecutor's dream. You've done our job for us. As Leandro and Sophia were escorted out of the auditorium, their voices growing fainter as they were led away, Leandro shouted at David, his voice filled with rage and desperation. This isn't over, David. I have lawyers. I have contacts. I'll make you pay for this. You had them, David replied calmly, his voice ringing with conviction. Now all you have is a jail cell, and a lot of time to think about what you've done. When the auditorium finally emptied, leaving behind only a handful of lingering employees, David and Anna stood alone on the stage, the silence broken only by the distant hum of the city. So, Anna said, breaking the silence with a smile, how was my first day as vice president? Unforgettable, David replied, pulling her into his arms, holding her close. Anna, you saved me in every possible way. You saved my company. You saved my reputation. You saved my life. We saved each other, she said softly, gently touching his face, her eyes filled with love and gratitude. Together, David kissed her right there on the stage, the place where, just hours earlier, his life had nearly been torn apart, the scene of his greatest fears and vulnerabilities. Now, with Anna in his arms, he felt like he was finally building something real, something lasting, something built on trust, honesty, and love. And now, Anna asked when their kiss ended, her voice barely above a whisper. Now, David smiled, his eyes sparkling with excitement. We have a company to rebuild, and a life to build together. And this time we'll do it right. Outside the building, the sound of police sirens faded into the distance, carrying away the remnants of 15 years of false friendship and 2 years of fake love. But inside the building, something true and beautiful was just beginning to blossom, promising a future filled with hope, possibility, and the unwavering strength of their bond. 2 weeks after the dramatic confrontation at the Miller Technologies board meeting, Anna was engrossed in a meticulous review of the company's financial reports in her new office, a spacious and elegantly appointed room on the same executive floor as David's, offering a breathtaking panoramic view of Lake Michigan. As vice president of operations, she had already implemented a series of strategic changes that were yielding impressive results, streamlining processes, improving efficiency, and fostering a more collaborative and ethical work environment. A soft knock on the door pulled her from her intense concentration. Come in, she said, without looking up from the intricate spreadsheets. Madam Vice President, do you have a minute for your CEO? David's playful voice made her smile, her heart fluttering at the sound of his voice. I always have time for my boss, Anna replied, finally lifting her gaze from the documents. She was immediately surprised and touched by what she saw. David was standing in the doorway, holding a stunning bouquet of long-stemmed red roses, their velvety petals unfurling in a vibrant display of beauty. What's this? Anna asked, her voice filled with warmth and affection. An apology, David replied, stepping into the room and closing the door behind him. He walked over to her desk, his eyes filled with sincerity. I know you've been working nonstop these past 2 weeks, practically living at the office, and I haven't shown you nearly enough how much I appreciate everything you've done. How much you mean to me. Anna stood up, deeply touched by the thoughtful gesture, the roses radiating a sweet and intoxicating fragrance. David, you really don't have to do this, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I'm so lucky to be working alongside you as your VP. I want to, he insisted, handing her the flowers, his fingers brushing against hers. Anna, you didn't just save my company. You saved my life. You helped me see the man I truly want to be, the leader I aspire to be. You brought integrity, compassion, and an unwavering sense of justice back into my life, and I'll be forever grateful. You were already a good man, David, Anna said softly, her eyes shining with love. You just needed to learn to trust your instincts, to believe in your own strength, and to surround yourself with people who share your values. You were always there for me when no one else was. David smiled, checking his watch. It's 5:30, he announced, his eyes sparkling with mischief. How about we get out of here, Madam Vice President? I have a surprise planned for you. David drove through the streets of Chicago in companionable silence, a mysterious smile playing on his lips. Anna tried several times to guess their destination, peppering him with questions and playful teasing, but he simply laughed and shook his head, refusing to divulge any details. It's a surprise, he repeated, his eyes twinkling with anticipation. You'll just have to wait and see. Finally, they arrived at North Avenue Beach, a popular spot along Chicago's lakefront. The October sun was beginning to set over Lake Michigan, painting the sky in a breathtaking array of colors. Vibrant shades of orange, fiery red, and soft, shimmering pink. What are we doing here? Anna asked as they stepped out of the car. I used to chase a shallow definition of success, money, prestige, the fleeting rush of power. But nearly losing everything showed me the truth. Those things are meaningless without someone special to share them with. David released Anna's hands, and in a move that stole her breath, knelt before her on the sand. Anna Santos, he began, his voice thick with emotion yet surprisingly steady against the backdrop of the lapping waves. You entered my life as a courageous cleaning lady, and somehow, impossibly, became my savior, my rock, my best friend, and the deepest, most profound love I've ever known. Anna's hands flew to cover her mouth, tears already brimming. You taught me that a person's true worth isn't measured by their job title or bank account, but by the integrity of their character. You taught me kindness, patience, and the importance of fighting for what's right. David reached into his pocket, producing a small velvet box. You also taught me that sometimes, the most important people in our lives are the ones who have the guts to tell us the hard truths, even when we don't want to hear them. He flipped open the box, revealing a ring simple in its elegance, a single, exquisitely cut diamond catching the fiery hues of the setting sun. Anna, I can't envision a single day, a single sunrise, a single future without you by my side. Will you do me the immense honor of becoming my wife? Tears streamed freely down Anna's face now, blurring her vision as she gazed at the man kneeling before her. This was the same man who had once prioritized a hollow friendship over standing up for her, but who had grown, evolved, and transformed into someone truly worthy of her love and respect. David? Her voice trembled, barely a whisper. Yes, please, 1,000 times yes. Of course, I will marry you. David surged to his feet, relief flooding his face. He gently slid the ring onto her finger. It was a perfect fit. How did you know my size? Anna asked, turning her hand this way and that, mesmerized by the sparkle. I enlisted Maria's help, of course. David grinned, a touch of sheepishness in his eyes. Actually, I asked for her blessing first. I told her you're the most important person in her life, and that I needed to promise her I'd take care of both of you. And what did you promise? That I'd dedicate my life to making you happy, David said, his voice full of love, before leaning in to kiss her softly, and that our family, all of us, would always come first. Anna returned the kiss, feeling as though her heart might actually burst from the sheer, overwhelming happiness of the moment. In the background, the gentle waves of Lake Michigan continued their rhythmic dance against the shore, and the first stars began to prick the darkening Chicago sky. I love you, David Miller, she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. And I love you, future Mrs. Anna Miller. 3 months later, autumn in Chicago had transformed Millennium Park into a breathtaking tapestry of gold, crimson, and amber. Inside her new apartment, which she and David had moved into just the month before, Anna stood before the mirror, making final adjustments to the simple, yet elegant wedding dress she had chosen. You look absolutely radiant, Maria declared as she entered the room, her eyes sparkling with joy. Her heart surgery had been a resounding success, and she looked healthier and more vibrant than ever. Nervous? Anna admitted, her fingers fiddling with the delicate lace trim. Strange. When David proposed, I was so sure, so certain. But now, on the day, it all feels so real, so momentous. Of course it does, Maria said, stepping forward to straighten her sister's veil. Now you're realizing you're marrying the man you love and becoming part of a beautiful, loving family. Anna, you deserve every ounce of this happiness. At that moment, Dr. Rodriguez arrived with Maria's latest test results. Perfect heart function, excellent outlook, he announced, a wide smile on his face. The sisters embraced, tears of relief and unadulterated joy streaming down their faces. An hour later, Anna walked down the glass aisle at the Lincoln Park Conservatory. The lush, tropical greenery created a magical, almost otherworldly setting. About 50 of their closest friends and family waited amongst the towering palm trees and vibrant orchids. David stood at the altar, practically glowing with happiness. When he caught sight of Anna, his face lit up with that familiar smile that always made her heart skip a beat. "You look absolutely stunning," he whispered when she reached him, his eyes filled with adoration. "And you look perfect," Anna whispered back, her own gaze equally adoring. Reverend Williams began the ceremony, speaking eloquently about the power of love, the importance of courage, and the beauty of second chances. When it was time for the vows, David spoke first, his voice resonating with sincerity. "Anna, you came into my life whispering a truth I didn't want to hear, a truth I desperately needed to acknowledge. You taught me that real strength comes from integrity, from standing up for what you believe in, and that true love is built on unwavering trust and mutual respect. I promise to be worthy of your courage every single day of our lives." Anna wiped away a stray tear before beginning her own vows. "David, you've shown me that some people really do change, that some men truly keep their promises. You've proven to me that love can conquer all. I promise to stand by your side as your partner in everything, through joy and hardship, through sunshine and storm." When they exchanged rings and sealed their vows with a passionate kiss, the conservatory erupted in applause, the sound echoing through the glass dome. At the reception, Don Roberto, beaming with pride, gave a heartfelt toast to the company's phenomenal success. In the 3 months since Anna had taken on the role of vice president, Miller Technologies had experienced unprecedented growth, a staggering 30% increase, and had secured several major, game-changing partnerships. "So what's next for the future?" asked Martha from HR, her eyes twinkling with curiosity. Anna exchanged a knowing glance with David, then turned to Maria, who was happily dancing with a friend. "Well," Anna said with a mysterious smile, tilting her head slightly, "there's actually one surprise we haven't shared with anyone yet." David looked at her, a mixture of confusion and anticipation on his face. "David, I'm pregnant," Anna said, gently placing her hand on her stomach. 6 weeks. A stunned silence hung in the air for a fleeting moment, before giving way to an explosion of pure, unadulterated joy. David swept her into his arms, lifting her off her feet and spinning her around as everyone clapped, cheered, and offered their heartfelt congratulations. Later that evening, on the rooftop of the luxurious hotel where they would be spending their honeymoon, David and Anna stood holding each other close, gazing out at the glittering lights of the Chicago skyline spread out before them. From janitor and CEO to husband and wife expecting a child, Anna mused, shaking her head in disbelief. "What an incredible journey." "The best part," David said, nuzzling his face into her hair and kissing the top of her head, "is that our story is just beginning." Anna turned in his arms, her eyes shining with love and gratitude. "Yes. Thank you for becoming the man I always knew you could be. Thank you for believing in me, even when I doubted myself. Thank you for never giving up on us." They kissed under the starlit Chicago sky, a kiss that sealed their love, their commitment, and their shared future.